everyone. Thank you
G'day,
for
folks.
attending. Thank you for attending this meeting. This meeting is with the AEC International Australia section and Reach, together with Anthony, Joy. Both are presenting today for us a very interesting topic and the costs of connecting with the people. So I wouldn't go much into the intro. I'll leave it up to Paul and Anthony to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Anthony Joy, and my background is really in and around managing and leading high performance teams. And along the journey, I was fortunate enough to meet Paul and the team at Reach, and we're going to share with you today some of the work that we've been able to do when it comes to improving performance on projects. And so that's a little bit about me.
I guess that's my cue to say something about myself. My name's Paul. I'm, I guess it's fair to say, a serial entrepreneur. My project management experience is in the IT style of projects with multi-vendors and large business transformation and all the complexities and relationships and standing up projects that and the pointy end that go along with all of that. And I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so today, obviously got a reasonably small group, so I think it's an opportunity to have a really interactive session where we can maybe give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you like about particularly your projects and what's impacting you. So we're going to talk about 4 or 5 really key ideas. The first is in and around project churn and what causes people to leave projects. And then we're going to talk about a case study that I was actively involved in. I'm going to talk about some of the tools that we're able to use there to reduce their rate of churn and also improve productivity. We're going to talk a little bit about multiculturalism in the workplace, particularly in the engineering construction industry, and it's certainly something that I think has a major impact in terms of the dynamics on projects. And then we're going to, if we have time, we're going to talk about another particular case study, which is in rail construction, but also the maintenance area. So, we're going to try and make it as relevant as we possibly can for the people that are on the call. And we definitely invite your questions. So if there's things that you want to ask us about, feel free to put your hand up, or given that the small size, just ask the question straight out. That'd be fantastic. Paul, have you anything to add, mate?
No, I think the membership is very focused on a combination of either construction or maintenance, and the 2 projects we're talking to today are construction and maintenance. So I think it's right on point. And I know if we cover everything, we could take several hours, and we've got 55 minutes, so 54 minutes. So let's jump on in and bring it all to life and have a collaborative chat and share some insights.
Yeah, so it's fascinating when you think about the cost of turnover in industry. And Paul and I looked at some of the numbers today, and construction actually leads the list in terms of the highest turnover of any Australian industry. So it's over 20%, and that's a big number. There are lots of factors driving that. Some of the more obvious ones are things like workload and project fatigue, but certainly right up there that I've seen and the data supports this is cultural issues or challenges that might exist on projects. So we wanted to, I guess, dive into some of those and have a conversation about those. So as an opportunity for the other people on the call to I'll pose a question to you. So, what do you think are the major drivers of this high rate of turnover in the construction and engineering space in Australia? So, Yeah, Kareem, can you any comments, mate? What would you think?
Yeah, I would say budget is one of the main things.
Budget.
So you would have a very high turnover.
And
Another thing,
is that because can I ask Kareem, is that because it's a competitive sector for the talented people, and so people are being poached based on money, or when you say budget, what's the budget driver to create employee churn?
yeah, the things like you're trying to cut costs somehow, one way or another, and always there's stress in the project to do so by any means. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got the cost focused people on the call. That's really good insight. Thank you. Any other sharing? And let me just set a little bit more scene. I've got some more people come in. Let me set a little bit more of a scene. Some of the things that I have noticed, and I know AJ has noticed as well. It's a really interesting thing that you're bringing a large number of people together very quickly, and they are coming from both different domains of expertise, oftentimes very deep expertise, which comes along with interesting dimensions to personality and very specific and dominant traits in their personalities. And compounding that, they're coming from different home organizations with different organizational cultures, different expectations, and different norms. And they're thrust together very quickly and expected to get up to speed very quickly. And though that combination of things, with the matrix reporting that goes on, the high pressure and the merging of the different organization cultures, and all the things come together to create a very complex melting pot is one of the things that creates the cultural things. And as this previous slide was saying, projects come with unavoidable excessive workload and pointy ends, which lead and people move from project to project, which creates a fatigue. And the very nature of them mean there's limited flexibility. So we've got a whole bunch of things happening at once to create this challenging environment. So just giving a little bit more fodder there. Anything in it, and welcome, Summer. Is it? Anything else anyone's reflected on or seen or experienced in this pressure cooker project land that we all live in? What have you experienced, AJ?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's a lot to do with time pressure. So what I see is it's actually linked to when projects are awarded often as well. So the project is these organisations are sweating on whether they will win the tender, and then it's awarded, and then before they've had time to do the necessary planning in terms of people, the right people, they need to start delivering. So there's enormous kind of pressure to get up to speed in a really short period of time. And as you said, Paul, you've got people from lots of different organisations that are pushed together. A lot of times they haven't actually, been working for the same host organisation. They might, in my experience, there might be some guys that have worked for BHP, other guys work for Rio Tinto, and all of a sudden they need to come together. And so they've got different backgrounds, different experiences, different understandings, I guess, of what cultural norms are accepted. And it becomes interesting when you think about things like the Sydney Swans, right? You think about the culture and what's acceptable with this particular group of people, and how do they work together. And if they haven't been through a process to help try and figure out how should we work together, then what the human brain basically, if we don't know someone, our default is to assume the worst. So when we don't know someone, we assume the worst. And if we assume the worst, oftentimes the project gets off to a bad start. And first impressions count, right?
Absolutely. And so what that turns into is really high rates. Yeah, Kareem, fire away. Yep.
I may add as well I'll come back again to the budget point.
Yeah, that's where we're headed
So,
next.
I would say that it's not only the cost of hiring people or firing, it's the cost that always the projects are like sometimes tenders go for zero just to have another project or stay in business. So
Yeah,
even this keeps a lot of stress on everyone to manage costs. So when I say budget, it's not only cost of that, it's cost that you always have to be like on top of everything to keep the project flowing, or you may lose your job, or you may lose. So it's always stress. It's always built up stress. And the construction industry is very, very competitive. So sometimes, like you submit prices or receive prices, and somehow someone is able to cut it by doing something.
Yeah.
So that's why you always be in stress. Okay, now we're in project, we have to make some profit, so we have to do it this way. So you will always seeking for the grass is greener on the other side. So you may jump to another company seeking that you wouldn't find this problem, or at least like an escape from what you have, or different problems. At
Yeah.
least that's my view. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks so much. That's a great perspective, and very valuable. Totally. And I guess the thing we're going to talk a bit about today is really the cost of losing people as a consequence of the friction and the cultural issues that AJ was sharing as well, where the people don't get connected. And we've got these this melting pot of stuff going on. We end up with really significant costs. So I'm going to give you all this link. So let's put it in the chat now. And it's going to help us quantify what is normally a very hidden set of costs associated with employee churn. So if you click on that link in the chat there, and I'll bring it up on screen, and we see this somewhat revolving door of people, and we make a range of decisions on bringing people in and out of the project at different times. And the costs are often really somewhat hidden in the average size projects. So if everyone's got that link there, I'm going to click on it, go to reveal my projects upside. And this really connects back to the $7 million opportunity, which is just average in our sector. Would you like to talk through this, AJ, and I'll do the typing, or would you like me to talk to it?
Mate, you can do the typing. You're probably better at that than I. I'll do my best, and if I don't explain something right, please pull me up. Right, but yeah. So for the purposes of trying to determine return on investment and potential savings on projects, we've got to tell us how many people are actually involved in the project. So in this instance here, the assumption is we've got 200 people operating on a project, which is pretty consistent with the couple of case studies that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. The average salary in the construction industry is significantly higher than the average salary in Australia. So I think $112,000 is the average annual salary in the industry.
Great. And just as a point of reference, because it's somewhat interesting, I think the average Australian income for the Australian economy all round is 91,000, and the care sector as a different sector for comparison is only around 70,000. So we've got a lot of technical roles that are hard to replace and are high value and do really technical and deep work. Sorry, AJ, just thought I'd add that
No,
point
and
of reference in.
that's super important. And I think, some of the other variances that you might find in that sort of space are, FIFO roles tend to be definitely higher. And I think that changes the dynamic in places like Western Australia and maybe even in places like Brisbane as well, where they might not be FIFO, might be more DIDO, drive in, drive out. But so the industry average, as we've already spoken about, is like 21%. So that's like 42 people per year that represent that turnover. And then, of course, we've got to make some assumptions about the cost to replace a crew member. And this varies widely depending on, I guess, More senior roles, generally accepted that it's probably upwards of 2 times an annualized salary. Other kind of roles in maybe different industries than engineering can be significantly less than that. For example, a carer doesn't take as long to get up to speed as someone who's working on a major project and has invested a lot of time and energy in learning the ins and outs and technical details of that project. So,
and can I contribute a bit to that as well while we're going through? Yeah, and so really, there's roles, like really niche roles of particular types of engineers or fire safety and building services, and these really particular niche roles where if you haven't filled the role or you lose a capable person, the costs associated with losing the person, which we talk about as cost to replace, also includes the downtime that results from having the long time to fill the role, right? And then the extra expenses to bring them in from a different project, and so it's senior but also very technical folk, and very specialist roles in this sector have a really high cost. Can anyone on the call share with us? Do you know the cost of replacement for different types of role in your projects? So you're going to put your hand up, fire away, Kareem. You're all good.
Okay. Yeah, I'll start like even it's not like knowing the exact cost, but it's really hard sometimes to convince management. For someone, it's not only the salary or even 2 times the salary or 3 times the salary. Let's say someone who's getting good negotiations, making good deals, like doing good claims, all of that. Actually, the costs, we are not talking about triple the salary. I think it's very hard to put a number into this one. Or even sometimes avoiding, let's say, I'll talk about my specialty, like avoiding claims. That alone, people will say, it's working perfectly fine. But without that person, we're talking about millions. So
Right.
how do you suggest to even convince management with such, let's say, for example, I have a team, I wanna keep all my team in. So how do you suggest, should I do that and convince the higher management up? We need each and every one here because that's the cost. I know that there will be a lot of exercises other than cost of hiring and etc.
Right, yeah, exactly, and thank you. It does take some machinations for sure to work it out, and there's a lot of costs that people don't recognize, like the overhead for IT and the onboarding and the time it dilutes the existing staff and a whole range of stuff that become and people that report to them or need decisions made or things checked by the more technical people. It creates these bottlenecks that has all these big overheads. If they're a gap and you have to replace them, they've got to back up to speed. So it takes some stuff. Now I keep getting your pronunciation wrong. Amir, what have you got for us? I saw your hand up there. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. I actually wanted to say the same like Karim said, but I wanted also to add one further point that I have seen it a lot during my work in Australia and even Middle East. The management in many cases are more prepared to accept letting people to go rather than giving them small increment and then rehiring another different people with maybe double the salary in different cases I have seen. And it might be depending on the client in some cases that the client is accepting the new hiring agreements rather than accepting to raise the current employee by more than 5%. And it looks like it is a recurring position from the clients here in Australia, which is surprising because, like you said, the cost you incur, like in training the new people who come and letting them know how the system works and the project, and treating them from the beginning until reaching to the same level that the previous employee left at. This is a additional cost to what Karim also have said.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. Thanks so much. It's strange how people don't take the bigger picture in when they're trying to make decisions that have such a big impact on cost, right?
yeah, I see it like this. But to be honest, also I have seen that in Middle East as well. the management is always prepared to let people go and hire new people, no matter what was the cost of the new people, rather than just giving raise to the existing people. So this is one of the issues I see. It's happening all the time. That I see many people leave and nobody asks why you are leaving even. Like there is no exit interview in most of the projects I have seen.
Hopefully we can through you on the call today share some hidden costs that they're unaware of, and so they see it differently. In this sector,
I think that's
averages out
a
about
really important thing. I
1.5.
mean, like being able to actually have a conversation with senior leadership about this, because sometimes what happens is that they have never taken the time or had a framework to be able to evaluate the real cost of letting someone go. And even, you think about someone walks out the door and then you've got to go and hire someone and there's all the associated costs. The immediate cost to the operating budget goes through, it increases more than giving someone a 5% salary increase.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's a lot. It's worthwhile having a discussion around that, but potentially doing it between projects when people are not under stress, where they can think about it clearly and even reach a position which might be more of a general policy. It might cause them to change their thinking in relation to a policy, but it's unlikely, as we've already talked about, when people are under stress, they often make decisions that don't make rational sense. We want to be able to have these conversations in time and space when people might be more calm and considered.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So before we go past this little bit, and it's all awesome. Thanks so much for your contribution, guys. I really appreciate it. Makes this much more fun. 200-person project is pretty average of the types that we're talking about here. This is average annual salary. 20% is also only average. 1.5 times the salary is also only average. When you've got the gaps and the replacement and the dependencies and the slippage between teams and all the other things that go on, 10% productivity loss is actually also very conservative, certainly not above average. And we're talking about a $9.3 million hole in the budget or cost that most projects don't seem to quantify, and it's significant opportunity for recovery by looking at the workforce through this lens. Hey, just out of interest, have you guys ever done this sort of math before?
I haven't.
Yeah, okay, it's interesting. So we work and say let's have a we're not going to do this on this call because it's all just in this particular call it's theoretical, but we're like, oh well, let's aim for a slight reduction, let's say a 21% to 16%, so a 5% improvement, which would just be conservative for a 5% productivity improvement. This is just load some average costs. Attribution is everyone. I guess this will get shared later. Anyone on this call want to talk about attribution or explain what that is for us? So really what we're saying here is for this 5% improvement, how much credit are we going to take with the things that we've done to purposely improve engagement and retention? Because there's other things go on. There might be pay rises, there might be the project won an award, it might be getting good press in the media, whatever it might be that makes people want to be part of it, and that can improve retention. Maybe we've got pay rises. So we go and say, well, let's only all these things that we're doing. Let's say that we only are going to take 50% of the credit. If we're only going to take 50% of the credit and only going for a 5% increase, we would end up with a significant net upside based on or just defaults and averages. So from a cost and cost control and perspective, this stuff has really powerful levers to pull that has a huge impact on the project and the bottom line. especially from a cost control focus and margin focus. I feel like I'm talking too much. Howie, anything you want to add, AJ or anybody else? Welcome to the new people that have come on. We've come on at an interesting moment. For the new folks who have just jumped on, there's a cost estimator and ROI potential from standard interventions for reducing the hidden cost of employee churn. Make sure you grab that from the chat so you can put the numbers in for your own project. Anything else that anyone would like to share or ask or comment about before we get back to the flow?
Yeah, may
Well,
I
I was
ask,
just
like,
thinking, based on what Amir said before, this might be a useful tool to have a conversation with senior leadership, because it's probably not something that most people ever think about.
And sorry, Kareem, are you going to say?
may I ask, like, how would we start even with the percentages there? For example, attribution, etc. How are we gonna do that to convince the senior leader in any company to put forward more into retaining employees?
How do we approach that? Are we saying so? We literally often start here and just help them get awareness that there's a significant hidden cost and upside that they often don't know to appreciate or to quantify. And then really it's about the fact that there's a proven methodology and proven process, which is what AJ's a specialist at, and he's going to talk to some examples in a moment. One engineering, one maintenance, where he's achieved these kind of outcomes for the clients, and us humans, we're delightfully complex and also actually pretty simple. And there's very proven, repeatable, reliable methodologies that are the things that make these numbers change.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But you think about every project. Every project is constructed of people, right? So every team is a collection of people. And really what we're talking about when it comes to creating a high performance team is a team where one and one will give you more than two. And sadly, what happens on many projects is that one and one gives you less than two. And the less than two comes because there's politics. It's because people don't get along with each other, because people don't understand each other, because people don't trust each other. And so one of the ways that we start on any project, and ideally we start at the start of a project, certainly get better results if you are able to follow part of this methodology very early in a project life cycle, but is to actually help people understand the other people that they'll be working with. And it's quite kind of interesting how many projects now are or aren't using a profiling tool. Reach, in my opinion, is probably the best tool on the market. And profiling is only one tiny part of what Reach is capable of. But I'm interested in other people on the call. So have you used profiling tools? Do you use profiling tools when it comes to figuring out how you should construct your team, or trying to optimize the way people work together? It's a question to everyone on the call. Who here has used profiling tools?
To improve collaboration, teamwork, outcomes, decision making. Yeah, interesting.
We haven't used one in our company. We have like selection criteria or how to do team building, but I guess if this is incorporated in the company policy somehow, that's what we have to do. I think it would make a big difference.
Yeah, interesting. And
So-
the magic is when that's awesome, Kareem. And I'm sorry to cut you off. I'll let you finish. Sorry. The interesting thing is this is all about in the project where we're bringing people together quickly. It's interesting as opposed to just in all the home organizations, because this is where you've got that need to stand up and move from forming to performing, right? And it's so it's and how to leverage each other's strengths. Sorry, Kareem, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No worries. I'm really interested in showing like a case study or something. You have to put it in action with the team.
Glad you asked.
So we can dive into that for sure, Kareem. So, it's fascinating when you start thinking about different people's personality, right, and the way that they work together, and actually leveraging an understanding of that in how projects are often rolled out. So this is actually an example that I was involved in remote Western Australia, and it was a rail project. And this is one of those instances, before I just said it's best if we get involved in projects early, before they've had an opportunity to, excuse the pun, go off the rails. This project was one that actually had gone off the rails, and I was invited to go up and figure out what was going on. So I went, it was mining services industry, remote part of Western Australia, really hard kind of environment, people living in dongas, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off kind of swing, high pressure, clients all over you. Actually had liquidated damages clause of $50,000 per hour for every hour that the contractor didn't deliver the rail on schedule. So it was really, very, very intense. And so, what was kind of playing out was, and the client had no idea about why this was happening. I was involved in terms of trying to help them figure out why is it happening and what could we do about it. So, I leveraged the tools in Reach. One of those tools, which is a profiling capability, and what this enabled us to do was understand the preferences of the people who were on swing A and also the people who were on swing B. And what we found when we analysed it was that the people who were on swing A had actually self-selected. So what had happened is they said, okay, you guys have worked together before. We need a swing to go up and work together. And surprisingly, or unsurprisingly to me, but surprisingly to the client, the people that said they wanted to go and work on swing A with these other people had a very similar profile. Now, this is human behaviour. This is subconscious bias. This is the fact that we tend to like working with people who are just like us. So in this particular case, the people on swing A, when we analysed their profiles, were almost exclusively what we would call advisors. So advisors are people that are extremely task focused and thinking orientated. And, and so they were swing A, and they had self-selected, and the organisation hadn't really put any thought whatsoever into having diversity of thought on the project. So they get a bunch of people all go up there together, and that they see the world in a very similar way.
And then what happened creates the opportunity for groups.
Swing B goes up, and surprise, Swing B had also self-selected. They'd said, I'd like to work with these kind of people. And they had a very similar profile again, a different profile than Swing A, but a very similar project, a very similar profile, which was what we would call a driver. So that's a group of people who are action orientated and task focused. If you like, Swing A was more engineering types, and Swing B was typically more construction types. And then, of course, the client asks a question, and the question is, how much time and money will it cost to extend this particular section of rail? And they asked the people on Swing A, who are the engineering types, how long it will take. And the people on Swing A reach a unanimous view, which comes from their perspective as engineers, which is that, hey, this is likely to take 6 weeks. and it's going to cost you $1.2 million. What happens is that the swing crosses over and swing B comes in, and the client asks this group of people, well, how long do you think it's going to take? And they come back and they say, well, it'll only take 2.5 weeks and it'll cost 450 grand. So a fraction of the cost. And so why was that, right? You know, one group of people are very task focused, right? So they're engineering types. They tend to get it right into the detail. They plan things. They think about lead time. They won't give an answer until they've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. Swing B, much more action orientated, very, very focused on getting things done and getting things done quickly. And as a result, the client's stuck in the middle. The client's sitting in the middle going, who should we believe? Should we believe these guys? Or should we believe these guys? And so, you know, what the other things that were happening is there was conflict. There was significant conflict between swing A and swing B. And this was, you know, that you guys probably know that how this works, right? So typically one crew flies out on one day and the other crew flies in, and there's very little time for a handover. But swing A, when they were handing over to swing B, they had very detailed plans. They had a task list, a schedule list, a checklist. Everything needs to be done, you know, according to this approach. And they give it to swing B, who really there's not a lot of planning involved, and you know, they're much more happy to just do things on a more ad hoc basis. So personality profiling enabled us to understand what was the human data that sat behind these conflicts, and also sat behind the client's frustration about getting a straight answer. And it was amazing when we rolled out profiles, you know, how the client's gone, oh, now I see it. Now I see how the composition of teams radically impacts how they work together, but also how they work with the client.
And it also turns into the opportunity for groupthink, right? Because everybody's thinking about it the same way.
Yep.
Everyone thinks out the same way. They all come to the same conclusion and pat each other on the back for, yeah, love how you approach that. But the reality, if we went back and asked this, which team was right, Team A or Team B? And it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I would say that. Like I've been working with both swings. It's always something in the middle.
Right. Exactly. So it's this fascinating thing, right? So now, obviously, we're 8:40, AJ, and we've got a lot to cover. So we're going
to... okay, we'll fly through this, yeah. So anyway, what happened, Kareem, was as a result of this, we decided that we were going to mix, we wanted diversity of thought. So we mixed the teams up. And, you know, initially the teams weren't happy about it, but we wanted to leverage diversity of thought so that we could look at situations from different perspectives and come up with better solutions to problems. And as a result of that, that project actually won a whole bunch of awards. They managed to avoid all the liquidated damages, which looked like they were inevitable at one particular phase of that project, and managed to turn the whole thing around. So it was through a deeper understanding of what drove people in those teams that we were able to do that.
And there's some very specific data underpinning it all that we won't get into now, but this stuff is extremely data-led, very clear, and very actionable. But for the interest of time, we'll move straight past this for the moment. There's an opportunity for a bit of discussion. We kind of alluded to this earlier. I had a bit of a chat about this earlier, Kareem. Do you want to fire away with some big picture stats around this stuff, AJ?
Yeah, so the data I've seen says that up to 60% of people that work in the construction and engineering space are born in different countries. And just looking at you know, people on the call, that looks like that'd be reasonably consistent, you know, across this group of people. So, what we're finding is we're getting more and more people from, different places in the world. And then what happens is we pull them all together, and we've got to create a high performance team in a really short period of time. So not only do we have these different personality dimensions that oftentimes we have little or no understanding of, because as we've talked about today, there's been no profiling done. But also then there are the cultural considerations that we are in many instances unaware of. And I run lots of workshops where we talk about cultural considerations, and I'm always fascinated by things like body language, about things like an Australian guy will go, somebody from overseas never looks me in the eye, and so in Australia typically they'll say, well, that means I can't trust him. Yep. And people from overseas will surface the fact that, for them, where they come from, many of those countries, it's seen as disrespectful to make eye contact. So little things like that are the little things that make a massive difference in terms of building trust, building collaboration, and then being able to produce great project outcomes. Paul, you can maybe talk to this, mate.
Yeah, we don't have long. I've got quite a bit to cover. So I was just going to say, guys, what have you experienced? I as I was saying to Kareem before we got on, I think Australia is a country with lots of cultural diversity here. A lot of our cities, Sydney and Melbourne, have about 40% or 50% of the population weren't born in Australia. Sydney and Melbourne are both, depending how you look at it, two of the most culturally diverse countries in the world, cities in the world. But I think we're not good at being aware. I think we're aware that there's lots of different cultures, but we're not good at understanding them and understanding the nuances. And what's that like for you guys on projects in Australia? Do you experience this stuff?
Of course, but if I may, just explain my view on this point, I'd say that the difference between how people see things on site, like the group of people you mentioned, the construction mainly, rather than the other advisors and councils look at things, is way and far more impacting than the cultural difference.
Nice.
I think because of this difference in how we see things on site, we are subject to a lot of issues in the project. Like construction people, like you said, are more interested in getting things done quickly and efficiently, but while doing so, they might neglect a lot of things. That the fact of what they were instructed to do by the client, for example, is might not be part of our obligations. So they might not be taking care of that and putting notes or notifying that we should be issuing a notice or something about whether we should do the work, or what is the associated cost of performing such works which are not part of contractual obligations. On the other hand, people like us, like in the support office, will be looking at, we should formalize everything before doing the work, so delaying the actual progress on site because of the proper contractual arrangement that should be done in place. So getting these two views together and making it closer to ensure that the project is on track without delays and without losing our contractual entitlement as a contractor, or jeopardizing also the client commercial and contractual interest. I think this is the biggest point in this discussion, more than the culture difference, because I think culture difference might be an obstacle during the meetings, but when you go for like emails and so, where the things gets formalized, I don't think it sounds like a big obstacle.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but that's my experience.
That's frankly great. It's awesome sharing. I think you're right. Or can be right. Sometimes it's right. It's right in all the contexts that you're talking about. Sometimes there can be the cultural aspects can have a high impact on trust and churn, like employee resignations, because things are managed poorly. People feel disrespected or have a range of other layers that go on. But the structural and foundational things that you're talking about, where the teams need to collaborate well and recognize that there are other things of long-term importance to the projects, that the other teams need the space and the time and the bandwidth to get right, or the setting, or everybody else is getting it set up to fail. I think that's amazingly powerful point you're making.
Yeah, and one thing that I would kind of add, so fundamentally what we're trying to do when we create high performance teams is we're trying to fast track development of the team, and probably many people on the call have heard, of the idea that we go through this kind of forming stage, storming stage, norming, and then performing. And what we're trying to do is get there quicker. And if we can increase people's understanding of how other people like to work, then they have an opportunity to instantaneously change the way that they interact with other people. So versus, we might spend 6 months or 12 months trying to figure out how to work with someone. So this is how we fast track performance, because once we start to understand the other person, we can start to adapt our way of interacting with them. And we talk about a couple of different ideas. So it might sound controversial, but what we actually want to do is we want to reduce the level of what we call relational conflict, which is where, you see things in one way, you want to go really fast, and I want to go really slow. It's my preference to go slow, your preference is to go fast, and therefore I think you're an idiot because you have a different way of operating than I do. So we want to reduce that relational conflict. That's what we're trying to do, leveraging reach through understanding. But then what we want to do is increase trust so that we can integrate different perspectives and increase conflict in relation to how do we best solve these problems. And so that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do, is reduce relational conflict and then increase task-related conflict about what's the best way to do this.
Yeah, so we have better psychological safety for higher quality collaboration and avoid groupthink. And the big thing, that one of the ways that I put the language is exactly what you're talking about, Amir, where one department or one function is frustrated with the other person's other department or function's approach. And when they get to have the awareness that the other department or person's approach is actually an exceptionally important contribution for everything else to work right, then that's where we get the collaboration, the understanding, and the fast track to performance, where we're getting the benefit of each different approach to work, each different approach to the different aspects of the project, and we recognize that those differences are what makes the difference to performance, instead of being frustrated and pushing back against them. And that's really where the magic happens. And it's through a multi-step approach that AJ is expert at doing. I might do me. I'll do a little video of exactly the thing. Kareem, anybody else want to share anything before AJ can tell the story actually, if as well. But anyone want to share or reflect anything more? You all have such on point things to say. It's amazing. I'm going to tell a little bit of story in here. We've got 9 minutes, so we'll do this. We've got the 40-second video, and we can do the other calculated thing if we choose to. We give people opportunity to get into their profile as well. So if you want to share a bit of the story and the outcomes that you got here?
I'll do 2 minutes on East Rail. So East Rail was a really interesting project because it was a joint venture. And so you've got two different companies that aren't used to being in joint venture relationships, having to come together to work as one team. So we went through a process where we did a session which is about getting people to understand each other. And during that same session, we built a team charter about how the two organisations were going to work together on this project. And it was extremely successful. Both companies were extremely nervous about going into it. They thought that they weren't going to be able to achieve the results. But what happened was they quickly built trust. They started to collaborate much more effectively. It was delivered on time, on budget, and almost nobody left the project. A lot of people, when the project finished, said it was the best project they'd ever worked on, which surprised so many people because so many joint ventures become very, can become very challenging. And we were really proud of what we achieved. It won a bunch of awards, and as a result, the East Rail project is, has proven and has become a case study which we can share and send to people if you want to see, quotes from the people that were on that particular project. But one of the guys I think we're going to show now, aren't we, Paul? It's going to show.
Yeah, so it's one of the rare projects, right, that had excellent feedback from the customer, industry-leading employee retention. It was on time, under budget, and on spec. Right, so they had every single metric was outstanding, and this is a little 38-second video of someone sharing one piece of that. Let's make sure I'm sharing sound before I press. There we go.
From a business perspective, it's freed up the different levels of management to focus on what we should be doing, as opposed to, a hard part of the job is dealing with people. And if everyone's starting on the same playing field, as in we all know where we should be in terms of how we like to work, how we like to deal with each other, it lets you focus on things that you should be focusing on, like how to actually deliver the job. Because everyone's kind of starting. If everyone did the REACH program, we all know how we like to work together, and that would just make things easier, or it has made things easier for us to continue.
So it's all about getting everybody to fill their roles in the way that they're intended. Appreciate that all those differences and nuances what provides all the foundations for high performance. We shared the whole project case study in the chat there. You're welcome to check it out. So one more link and takeaway for you. What's a really interesting thing when you're doing, sorry, I'm trying to find my other screen. There we go. I'll just put this in the chat and bring the screen across. So, we're working across the lifespan of the project. We love to really start at what was the last project, or where are we at when we get engaged. What are we aiming for, and what's the attribution factor? So what's our targeted figures? And then come back at the end and actually do our actuals and see what we achieved for the cost savings as a result of implementing the things that create better engagement, retention, and performance, and avoiding the hidden costs. And the big picture, because the thing is, when there's high turnover, something we haven't spoken about much, we mentioned it in passing. It creates slippage it's not just the costs up front, but it creates slippage. That slippage creates pressure. That pressure creates costs. The costs create all compound, right? So this is the whole thing about keeping the project on track and high performance and under budget, and also on time, which obviously budget direct correlation, but so we really like to come back and connect the dots at the end just to see what the real results were. And so you have a link to that. I would encourage you to grab that. You would be most welcome to grab that. It's a really interesting lens to look through. Now, I will put this back in the chat again. We just want to talk through this REACH profile piece. So the people on the call haven't had the opportunity to do these before. I'll just talk to it really quickly and just repost it. What doing that survey, it takes about 12 minutes. There's no right or wrong. There's no better or worse. It simply will give you a really strong piece of clarity about your tendencies, your preferences, and your strengths, how you communicate, how you approach work, and a whole range of other things. And when we're bringing high performance teams together, it's about having the diversity of thought and the appreciation that that diversity of thought and diversity of approach to work is what lays the foundations and then maintains high performance. So I would encourage you to go and get that. Obviously, it's free of charge in this context as a benefit for coming on the webinar. But I would encourage you to have the self-discovery opportunity. And if you did, and you want someone to professionally take you through it, either AJ or I would happily give you a personal debrief. But in terms of setting yourself up to approach things with additional insight, I would strongly recommend that.
One other thing that I might just really quickly reference is one of the things I love about Reach, and my clients love about Reach, is that not only do you get a profile of yourself and everyone in your team, but if you're leading a project, you actually also have the opportunity to leverage AI assisted coaching. So this is kind of the idea that, if there's a particular person that, you need a performance review with or have a challenging conversation, you can leverage the AI and ask it a question about how you could, best approach that challenge, and it will coach you how to do that based upon an in-depth understanding of that person's personality. I'm not aware of any other tool in the world that does that. And I think it's an amazing tool, and my clients think it's an amazing tool for project managers, project directors, people who don't have degrees in psychology or have, regular on-tap access to a professional coach to figure out how to deal with people challenges. And
just have that conversation
amazing...
just have that conversation that's like, oh my goodness, this is an awkward and scary conversation. What if I upset the person? And so we just avoid the accountability chat, right? And then that compounds, turns into behavioral challenges and lack of accountability. But it's just scary to have. And you're exactly right, AJ. The AI, because it knows your personality, it knows the other person's personality, and it knows the best practice approach to having the chat. And depending how it's implemented, it has the insights as well. It'll coach you to get the conversation right, so the confidence to go and have it rather than letting something fester. My just to not run over time, it's 9 o'clock. This is what we covered today. Case study in the desert, looked at the math around your project churn, multicultural dimensions, case study in rail. And I would love any questions if you have any. And if not, we will finish on time. But very happy to finish late and have a chat. Thanks, Kareem. Love the emojis. All right, I'll do an end to the event so we can wrap that up there. It's been great. I really appreciate everybody's contribution. You've given really excellent perspective and added a lot of value and depth to what we're saying. So much appreciated, and thanks so much for the opportunity to share with you today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it as well.
Thank you all. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.